Hello and welcome to Tuesday Newsday, your #1 resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. There's actually a ton of stuff that happened this past week, including some new information about Qualcomm's new VR headset, supposedly having eye tracking, hand tracking, 60 GHz Wi-Fi capability, and the powerful XR2 chipset. So let's jump right into the news. Yesterday, Valve dropped some of the first real gameplay we've seen of Life Alyx. Between a 9-minute exclusive gameplay with IGN and Valve's own trailers, we've seen more of the game than ever. I'm not going to show the gameplay here as it's pretty revealing for certain sections of Life Alyx, and I know a lot of people are wanting to experience the game or see it for the first time without too many spoilers regarding location or specific things that happen. I will say, however, that it is confirmed that there are 3 forms of locomotion: smooth, teleport, and scoot. Overall, the gameplay looks to be pretty fantastic, and the release date of March 23rd still stands. The game will release on SteamVR for all PC VR platforms, and since I know the question will pop up, the game will not be released for Quest. Now, let's get on to some pretty scary stuff. Due to the worldwide outbreak of COVID-19, multiple events related to gaming and VR have been canceled. The 2 I'm going to mention here are F8, Facebook's large press conference that historically has been a pretty big deal, as it's the event where the Quest and Rift S were launched just last year, and GDC. I actually had flights and a press pass and everything for GDC, and I was looking forward to making some really cool content for you guys regarding upcoming VR games. But like I said, it's all been canceled due to the outbreak. Originally, attending the event was going to be Valve, Oculus, Epic, Unity, Intel, and more, along with a giant list of indie developers. But slowly, they all started pulling out. Also, just because everything is not happening doesn't mean the announcements planned are canceled. We're just likely going to see a far more Nintendo Direct style approach. Although, personally, this is something I see as a giant opportunity for virtual reality as a whole. Going to these events is an expensive feat for attendees, booth holders, and media covering the whole thing. For something giant to be canceled means a lot of people are losing a lot of money, all the way from me and my plane tickets to the company spending thousands to set up booths. This is why I see great potential to, in the future, hold some of these press conferences in VR. If you can't risk bringing thousands of people together because it's a serious health hazard for everyone, then why not bring everyone together while apart through the next best social platform that we have, and that's VR. Look, maybe it's ambitious, and maybe some people would be turned off by the whole thing, but I do see it as a massive opportunity for VR to grow in a segment that it already hasn't. If you've been on any VR social application, you'll know that talking with people in VR is the next closest thing that we have to face-to-face communication, and you can do it on a massive scale with tons of people present. Making connections and networking is one of the most important parts of these types of events, and I do think that VR eventually can aid greatly in the future, especially if something is going to be canceled because we can't be there physically. So, talking about connecting socially in VR, I've got something super amazing to share with everyone, and I'll make this clear, this isn't necessarily new tech, and I'm definitely not the first one to have done this, but no one really knows about it and no one knew it was pretty easy to do, so here I am talking about it. This past week, I felt one of the first hugs ever in VRchat via a haptic suit. Recently, I've been testing out bHaptic's vests, arms, legs, and facial interface that all come together to be a haptic suit, and I've been trying to push it to its limits. Turns out there's some super roundabout crazy way to get almost the entire suit to work in VRchat, which to me is just amazing. Being able to interact with someone or have them grab a brush or even use their hand, and for me to feel it was one of the trippiest game-changing experiences ever for me in VR. I'm all for feeling gunshots in games or punches, but the social implications of feeling someone's physical presence is what kind of made me see the huge potential for this moving forward. So basically, I hopped in, got everything working, and tested it out by receiving one of the very first hugs in VRchat. Like I said, it's been done before, but it hasn't really been made public, and we did it on stream for everyone to see. Pretty much my whole body was vibrating. It was really interesting. What's cooler is that we were separated by hundreds of miles playing a social game at 3 a.m. in VR, but I was able to feel them. In case you're wondering how this works without a client, basically every item within this Unity package that you add to your avatar has local cameras that captures the red dots that activate when a model collides. These dots are translated to your VRchat screen, and a separate software captures the bit of the screen to accurately translate the dot mapping to your haptic suit. Really cool stuff and an interesting way to go about it that I didn't really think about. Coming up this week, I'll have a full video on the Virtually Odd series that I've been working on, where I really push the haptic suit to its fullest capabilities in a variety of games like Skyrim VR and Pavlov, as well as some more interesting things in VRchat. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. I've been hard at work on it. The vest does come to $500 and all the other peripherals just add to that price. So yeah, it's expensive, I know that. But it is the cheapest and best option that we have right now in the consumer market, and it actually works. If you are interested, just make sure to stay tuned for the next video on this channel. I just had to mention it because it's one of the biggest things that's happened to me, especially in the past week in VR. And now it's time for a meme break! Being lucky isn't all that it's cracked up to be. Vive after 3 years, Index after 3 months. This is kinda all too true. I know I'm on my second Index headset and second right controller, and all my other headsets have lasted quite a bit longer. I will say though, I've put far more hours in my Index in a short amount of time than my previous headsets. That's probably because the Index has made getting in VR far more accessible and enjoyable. Either way, Alyx is only like 20 days away, so baby your HMDs until you can at least play it. Prediction: the Quest 2 will be a viral hit. And ironically, the headset shown is the reference device for the new Snapdragon XR2 chipset, which we'll talk about right now. Back to the news. So remember when people were claiming that the Pico Neo 2i was an Oculus Quest killer? Yeah, no. If anything is a Quest killer, it's a device from this lineup with the new XR2 chipset from Qualcomm. If you don't know what it is, it's a chipset designed specifically for VR and AR applications that is far more powerful and specialized for the kinds of tasks that VR presents. Being able to support high resolution, high refresh rate displays, up to 7 cameras versus the previous bottleneck of 4 with the 835, insanely faster speeds, and graphics processing, it's all just incredible stuff. Oh, not to mention 5G support with edge computing capabilities as well for low latency cloud computing. On top of that, Qualcomm is actually making their own headset for their platform with their reference design. This is a pretty huge deal for standalone VR. The Quest, while amazing for what it is pretty limited in its processing power, which is why we'll never see a game like Life Alyx released for it. Of course, Life Alyx is honestly a terrible example because Valve would never release a game on the Oculus Store because they have their own storefront, but you get the idea. This is a giant upgrade from anything we've seen in the standalone segment before. There are no prices or anything yet, and it's likely that these reference designs are going to be very pricey and mostly targeted towards the enterprise market. It's more about what will come from this technology in the coming months or years that are meant for consumers. The current headset from Qualcomm supposedly supports 60 GHz Wi-Fi, which is similar to the Vive wireless adapter used for wireless PC VR. So potentially no more tether at all. 5G capabilities, 7 tracking cameras, 2 LCDs so you know it's going to have IPD adjustment, eye tracking, hand tracking, and 6-off controllers. Now that is a package. Probably one of the most robust and crazy feature-packed headsets that I've ever heard of. And while this HMD in particular may not be one that any of us will use, the technology will trickle down as it always does, and we'll see direct improvements in our headsets because of it. Speaking of Oculus, if you've been using your link cable to play PC games on your Quest, then you'll know that there have been issues historically with incompatible versions of the software being pushed all the time between the Quest and the desktop application. Not only did the Oculus software and Quest have to be the exact same version, but you couldn't be on the PTC beta software, and sometimes updates would break the Oculus link entirely, and you just had to wait until Oculus fixed the problem. Well, the most recent update has fixed that issue just a bit, and now you could either be a version or two ahead or behind, and it's likely that the link will still work. Overall, the link has been getting better and more consistent for me over the past few months, and this is just another update that pushes the headset further forward to being a very viable PC VR HMD. Facebook has recently acquired Sansaru Games, the studio behind Asgard's Wrath, one of the big Oculus exclusives that launched last year. I think this comes to no surprise as they were already receiving funding from Facebook and released a large, relatively successful game as an Oculus exclusive for Facebook's platform. You may not know this, but this studio has been making Oculus games for a while now, releasing both VR Sports Challenge and Marvel Powers United in previous years. This goes along with Facebook's strategy that they made clear during the acquisition of Beat Games, developers of Beat Saber. Sansaru Games has become one of the most experienced and talented VR folks in the VR game development industry, and Asgard's Wrath made that plenty clear. Featuring a 40+ hour campaign and robust world, and it's pretty clear that from now moving forward, I wouldn't expect anything other than Oculus exclusives from the company. But whatever they do develop, it will likely be of high quality. Just sucks that a large number of VR users will probably never touch the game due to the exclusivity. And now that we're on to exclusives, I have one last game that I wanted to highlight. Lies Below is a new game announced as an Oculus exclusive, coming next month for the Quest and in April for PC VR. This game is inspired by horror manga, and it just in general looks like an absolute absolute blast, and it's one that I'm going to be picking up. A lot of the creatures do remind me of creations from the Silent Hill franchise, as this VR Scout article points out, but really, if you're looking for a horror-based stylized game with some Japanese roots, just keep your eyes on Lies Below. Like I said, it unfortunately is an Oculus exclusive, but I guess I'll report how Revive works. And now it's time for question of the week. From Noah, will I ever bring back Indie Dev Spotlight? So as Tuesday Newsday has evolved and changed over time, I like to add new things or take things away that I feel don't perform well or that need tweaking to make the episodes more entertaining. I think a lot of what I do here is curated for VR enthusiasts, but I want to make the videos easier to watch for people that don't live and breathe VR. So I know that sometimes talking about XR2 chipsets and Facebook acquisitions really isn't all that interesting, but it needs to be said, especially here on Tuesday Newsday. And I can't make every video 20 minutes of just that. I reached a point where I was struggling to find good indie games to feature, and I didn't want to shove a garbage game down everyone's throat or endorse a game that I don't find good. So instead, if I see a game that's cool or I'm interested, I'll just talk about it in the main video, kind of like what I did today with Lies Below. I think it ends up having a better effect, and it's not so, I don't know, corporate sounding. Make sure to leave your question of the week below. I may just answer yours next. It can be about anything, even my thoughts on Valorant. And that's the week's news. Don't forget to stop by my Twitch stream today and say hi so we can meet up or talk VR or just have a good laugh. Join up in my Discord server to get updated scheduling on that. I want to say thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Omegas like Michael, Exit, and Very Evil Shadow. I couldn't be doing any of this without you. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.